The Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast is made possible in part by a generous gift from Set Apart to Serve, the church work recruitment initiative of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Many church workers always knew they wanted to serve in Christ's church, but many pastors, teachers, and other full-time church workers left careers to pursue this life of service. If you or a friend have been praying and thinking about a second career as a church worker, the Set Apart to Serve team wants to help. Visit kfuo.org/SAS to learn more. Listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
It is Thanksgiving season. It is food season. It's always food season, let's be honest. But it's Thanksgiving food season, which means we have an Iron Ladle challenge today. Get your eating pants on. We've got some comfort food, what is it? Hot fat carbs? Does this count
hot
as
fat carbs? This does.
It does.
Hot fat carbs today, guys. We've got all of it happening today. So, Erin, your food smells amazing. So
today,
yes.
We are covering it's my favorite traditional Thanksgiving dish.
Ooh.
And honestly, I think it's many people's favorite. So, that'll be an interesting thing to see, but I'm pretty sure this would win. It is stuffing.
Yes. Hot fat carbs.
It is. And honestly, absolutely on the carbs. That one is a no-brainer. However, if it's good stuffing, it is absolutely also hot fat carbs. That's part of what makes it so delicious.
Oh, the butter.
So, yes. Indeed. Yeah. So I'm not even going to attempt because as near as I can tell from my I don't know. I have very ambivalent feelings about the term Bible when it refers not to the word of the Lord.
Yeah.
But my expert text, my default, my baseline for cooking questions, I always start with the joy of cooking.
Yes.
Yes.
As my starting point for answering questions. And they're like, dressing, stuffing, it's semantics. Some people are like, well, stuffing is when it's stuffed, and there's no consistency.
But then what is dressing when you dress it?
This is a red herring, people. Don't let this be an obstacle to your enjoyment of this. I'm going with stuffing as the name of it. I think some people also now we're getting into it. But anyway, another little side trivia thing. There's some opinions that dressing came about because stuffing was a bit too vulgar a word in the Victorian era. So they're like,
yeah, I can see that.
Put it dressing instead of stuffing.
That's funny.
Maybe it's just a legend. Who knows?
Very plausible, though.
Now everyone's going to go Google. Do not Google that at work, guys. Or in front of your children.
Okay, there's another controversy, stuffing versus dressing is one. But do you actually cook the stuffing in the bird?
That's another angle that some people are like, it can only be stuffing if it's actually been stuffed in a bird.
See, now my mother always tells me
there too.
Cooking stuffing in the bird is a great way to have soggy stuffing and a dry turkey. They used to do it as a way of making sure that you soaked up every little last drop of meat juice and grease and whatever because they needed the calories. But now we go for flavor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can do it, but it also carries its own challenge then because then you're needing to you're not just risking the flavor and consistency of the stuffing, but you also have to think about food safety because you need the stuffing then to come to temperature for food safety since it's been inside of a raw turkey.
Oh boy.
Which, if you're trying to hit that temperature, can make it a challenge because then you can end up overcooking your bird because you're trying to hit the stuffing temperature. So then people go to the lengths of they're like, okay, well, I'll do it. And then when the bird is ready, we'll pull it out and then we'll empty out the stuffing. Then we put that back in the oven. And then it's just too much trouble. It's not worth it.
That's a lot of work.
If it's your family tradition to do this, by all means, if it makes you feel happy and nostalgic, keep it up. This is Thanksgiving adiaphora. But I though feel passionately about stuffing. I sort of took ownership of the stuffing at our family Thanksgivings when I returned from Japan. And while I was in Japan is where I really came to recognize just how important stuffing was to my enjoyment of Thanksgiving, like as a feast like that. It was such a highlight because one year we didn't have it and I was like, I felt such a letdown because there were a group of the missionaries, we got together and pulled off a Thanksgiving feast, which let me tell you, anyone who has tried to pull off a traditional American Thanksgiving feast outside of America, where we have the land of giant ovens, knows how much of a commitment it is to accomplish this. In Japan, they would sell turkey by dimension, not by weight.
Oh, that's funny.
Or no, they don't sell it by dimension, but it's included on the tag. On the tag, it includes the dimensions of the turkey so that you would be able to assess, will this actually fit in the oven that you have access to? So it includes like a height, width, and depth of a turkey on the tag, not just the weight. They don't sell it by the dimensions, but the dimensions are included on the tag. So
I feel like that's really useful though. Like,
it is,
in America
honestly.
too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you guess wrong.
Well, that's true.
Especially the height. If you have like a double oven.
And especially if you were planning on using both shelves. And now all of a sudden you are down to one because your turkey is just too tall.
Yeah. Indeed.
Thanksgiving math.
Anyway, after coming back, I was like, I just have a deep love for stuffing. And so I decided that I would start making that my contribution to the family Thanksgiving meals. Through the years, occasionally we haven't had it. If it was a smaller year one year, but I always feel pretty bummed when that happens. So I usually lobby to be like, but can't we have stuffing? We could skip the rolls.
Yeah.
Other people might love rolls, but me, I'm like, who cares about rolls if I can have stuffing? Now, I mean, honestly, I'm going to eat a roll if there's a roll there at Thanksgiving.
Carbs. It's the carbs.
If I'm forced to choose, I'm going to pick stuffing every time.
So good.
Yeah. So stuffing.
Yes.
I grew up with my grandmother making the stuffing, and she gave me a love of having a very complicated stuffing as far as let's just put everything in it. Oh. In many ways, it's almost a casserole, my stuffing. And I mean, it could almost pass as a casserole, I feel. So as the years have gone by, I have sort of taken that approach and I've added to it. So I've sort of, elaborated even a bit more on the classic that we started with. There is absolutely stuffing. Let's talk about the stuffing divide as far as starting point, your bread base.
Oh.
Now, there's the yeast bread stuffing, which is my true love. Absolutely. I love a bread stuffing that's made with a yeast bread. However, my father grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and he has a love of cornbread stuffing. So the cornbread base is another very popular stuffing base.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and there have been years when I've gone the cornbread route, but I mean, the yeast bread always has my deepest heart.
Yeah.
But cornbread stuffing is very delicious. I don't know, Rachel, what camp do you fall in?
I like it all. Mostly. There are exceptions, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. But whether it's bread or cornbread, if you want to serve both at Thanksgiving, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
As long as there aren't too many fruit items. I think this is where we agree to disagree.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. We've crossed this river before, or, come to the bridge and agreed to take the fork in the road and taken a different path.
I may, to quote Voltaire, I may not agree with your stuffing recipe, but I will defend to the death your right to make it that way and love it.
Yes.
And yet, that said, I mean, your tastes do mature as you grow older. So if you handed me a dish of your stuffing right now, I would probably try it, and I might love it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you'd love it. Who knows if it would actually convert you, because sometimes these sort of things are established in you from a very young age, and you sort of stick with those sort of establishments.
Reason why you can't have multiple stuffings on the table. That was sort of a rule when I was growing up. We would have one of my aunts would always make her fancy stuffing, homemade, but I'm sure it was homemade bread that was home toasted and home, with had raisins in it.
Yeah.
And that was a no-go.
Yes.
And so the rule was my mother would always bring a big pan of stovetop. And
stovetop stuffing is delicious.
It is delicious. That's my go-to. Now, when we talk recipes, just because you start with stovetop doesn't mean you're just stuck with stovetop.
That's also true.
That's true.
It is one of the most easily modifiable foods I've ever discovered.
Yeah. Yeah. The nice thing about cornbread stuffing, too, is if you're gluten-free and you can still eat corn, that's a fabulous option for a gluten-free.
Very true.
It really is.
That is why I know at least a couple years we've gone that route when we've had the number of people who prefer to either can't eat gluten or prefer to eat less gluten has fluctuated through the years in our family. And so that has caused cornbread stuffing to come and go, depending on that in particular.
But you know what? It's a savory bread pudding.
It is.
You put enough seasoning and butter in it, whether it's cornbread or yeast bread.
Absolutely.
It's going to be amazing.
It's delicious.
Yeah. Savory bread pudding is an excellent description of stuffing. And I mean, I love that too. Regular bread pudding. So I just, well, we know I've made my love of this sort of thing known before. So this comes as no surprise to anyone.
That's true.
Okay. So let's see. Where do we want to go with this? So I made stuffing for this episode. I will be honest. Those of you who are listening, we are recording this at the end of October. And I was like, stuffing. And I mean, it's delicious, but there is a commitment to it because it's feast food. So you're doing special stuff. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I have a picture from a previous year's stuffing, and I could just talk about stuffing and reuse my picture. But alas, I don't know if it just stuffing. Sometimes it's beautiful. I feel like I took an okay picture of it this time, but it's mainly about the taste and less so about the looks.
It's not a pretty food.
And so, I couldn't find any previous pictures. I was like, well, shoot, I can't. Now I don't have a picture, and so I decided I just have to make this stuffing.
Oh, poor you.
I know. Luckily, though, we have a potluck on Sunday, so I'm bringing a big old batch of Thanksgiving stuffing to a Reformation potluck. It'll be great.
I love it. We are thankful for the Reformation.
We are.
Yes, it works.
Yes. So let's see. Do we want to talk about this? If you haven't ever made stuffing before, or if you have and you're just like, I want to try a little something different, we can talk about this. I can walk through that recipe first. Or would you guys like to talk about some stuffing variations first before we talk about a specific walking our way through a recipe?
Well, mine sort of goes along with that. Like, variations are involved.
Mine is absolutely a weird variation. So
I think Sarah should go first because here's why. Astute listeners will remember we have discussed Sarah's family's ridiculous anomaly before.
Yes. And it so I covered that there's like the two major camps of stuffing, but there are absolutely some niche groups.
We are apparently an outlier, and I didn't know that until this year.
Yeah, I can't remember what episode it was, but I remember all of us saying, well, that's weird. What? Sarah, you need to call your mom and find out more about this and confirm that you are not remembering it wrongly because that's weird.
Yeah.
Guys had me second guessing there for a hot second in that episode.
Yeah. So tell us, Sarah, about your family's traditional stuffing.
This is absolutely my favorite part of Thanksgiving. Full disclosure, I can no longer eat it anymore, which is highly sad, but I can taste it. It is like core childhood memory because I would always help my mom make it. And I did actually call my parents this week. And I was like, this is the only stuffing that I remember. Where on earth did it come from? Because apparently it's weird. And they were like, oh, we just made it up. So...
Oh, yes.
Which is amazing. I absolutely love that this is like original Bossard family recipe.
Okay.
That apparently doesn't exist anywhere except in our house. So
oh my goodness.
I love this.
I can't wait. This is getting better and better.
Really?
So this is cold stuffing. And
so weird.
The two of you are like, what even is that?
Yes.
And I'm very curious if anybody else in the lounge has cold stuffing. And this is not like stuffing that we made that was hot and then we put it on the table and it cooled off.
Refrigerated stuffing. I'll tell you that right now. Leftovers cold. I'm fine with it.
Well, and that's that's what this tastes like, except it was purposely chilled before Thanksgiving dinner.
Tell me more.
Yes. So it's super simple. It's a box of stovetop stuffing, the herb version. My mother was very specific that it's the herb version of the stovetop stuffing. You make that according to the recipe. I remember there being a lot of butter in it. I don't know that we added extra, but I remember being like, this is a lot of butter when I was a small child. And then this is not even written down anywhere. So this is just as you please. It's chopped apples, chopped walnuts, and raisins.
Okay.
And I think we make the stuffing, you cool it, and then you chop all the rest of the stuff up, and then you mix it together, and then you eat it. Like, that's it. It's super easy. But this is like so kid friendly, and we would get the whole walnuts like in the shells, and we had a nutcracker.
Oh, wow!
So like I'd spent the afternoon like cracking the nuts open and mashing them and chopping all those apples.
Unexpected. So you've got like the easiest of possible things combined with the hardest of possible.
Oh yeah. It was a whole thing. So yeah, my parents. So I asked them if. Like, I know that they made it up. And I was like, but where would you even get this idea from? My dad thought maybe, like, my grandma used to love making Waldorf salads. And so maybe there was some inspiration because it is a bit of a, like, stuffing Waldorf salad-ish.
Okay.
Like a cold bread pudding, I suppose. So that's probably where that inspiration came from.
I'm sure it wasn't just leftovers. They're like, this stuffing is just as delicious leftover.
See, I don't know because it was since I was a baby. So I don't remember the genesis of this. It was before I was literally born.
Okay. I have a theory. Okay. So this happened before they had a microwave.
Oh.
And they're looking at this large amount of leftover stuffing and they're like, well, it'll really dry out if we put it in the oven, but we want to refresh it some way. What if we add fruit and nuts and mix it up and just eat it straight out of the fridge? No microwaving, no oven required. I feel like I like my theory.
Yeah,
it's a solid theory.
Works in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it was definitely a genius idea because it is so good. So my mom also told me that she has never cooked stuffing inside of the turkey. Her mom did. Her mom used to do that. And she would it was full on inside the turkey, chopped up organ meat, like the whole 9 yards of putting the stuffing into the turkey. And she just didn't want to do it. So she didn't do it.
Okay. Yep.
Like, that is a woman after my own heart. Like, I just don't want to do it. So I don't think I even knew that like stuffing inside the turkey was actually a thing for a really long time, or that stuffing was hot. for a really long time. When we would go places and have hot stuffing without apples and raisins and walnuts. And I'm like, what is this? This is weird. I don't like it. So that is like core childhood memory of this stuffing. And I absolutely love it. I think, I don't know. My brother and sister-in-law don't make it anymore though, typically, which makes me a little sad. I also have to say that we used to pull out a little bit of the stuffing and not mix it into the cold stuffing. We would leave it. And then I know this is a different episode, but we would put stuffing into our turkey casserole the next day too. So it was like double usage.
Yeah.
We would cook up noodles and put in leftover turkey and stuffing into the turkey casserole next day, which like second favorite Thanksgiving food.
Yeah.
But yeah, that stuffing I probably ate far too much of it. It's just so good. I need to know who else has cold stuffing.
Right.
Like, on purpose, cold stuffing.
Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
For the people who have married into your family as adults, what has their reaction been to this traditional feast dish in your household?
That's a good question. And I did ask my sister-in-law a while ago, and I can't remember. I don't know that she was super impressed by it because they just make stovetop stuffing out of the box for Thanksgiving. Yeah. They don't make this one. So I don't know if she thought it was weird, but she also wasn't super impressed. Not like I was. It's my favorite thing.
I love it. I love that your family invented this and that you learned that it's not something they like was passed down. In fact, they invented it themselves.
Yeah. I totally thought it came from one side of the family, like somebody else's parent had made it. And they were like, nope, we just made it up.
Fantastic.
It's amazing. Bossard family stuffing.
But if there's even one more side that doesn't have to come out of the oven 2 minutes before you serve the meal, that's a win.
Yeah, we did used to make it ahead of time and just chill it.
So many things are competing for oven space.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, at the end, I'll offer the strategy that I developed for this very thing.
Oh,
okay.
Maybe it'll have application for someone else. But we aren't going to get off on that tangent. First, I want to hear more about Rachel's experience.
Okay, so
with
I am definitely, I definitely make stovetop straight out of the box a lot of Thanksgivings because it's what my family will eat.
Yeah.
As much as I love stuffing, if I have to eat the whole pan for myself, that is just never a good idea.
It's a lot.
Although I may end up doing that after today's because I did make a variation. Because it sounded good to me. But my typical stuffing adventure, and I'm with you, Erin. If I had just like a little bit of turkey, a small serving of green bean casserole, and a big bunch of stuffing, I would be very happy. But I would have to have over it giblet gravy, which is as fancy a gravy as stovetop is boring a stuffing.
Yes.
It's, gravy with gizzards, chopped liver, and neck meat, and hard-boiled eggs. Oh my goodness! It's
the eggs kind of throw me off, though.
Don't knock it till you try it.
I was thinking about it because you had mentioned it as we were planning for this, and I was like, at first, I know I've seen it. We don't typically add hard-boiled eggs to our gravy. However, as I was contemplating, I know I've seen it listed as an optional add-in, and a chopped hard-boiled egg, actually, I think it's got a lot of similarity in texture.
Yes.
To chopped turkey liver, and like the yolk is going to be very similar to chopped turkey liver.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there's enough similarity that, again, if you're somebody who is looking to dress up or stretch a little further.
Yes, because those chopped organ meats, no matter how finely you chop them, if you've got a big group of people all eating from one gravy boat, there's not going to be a lot to go around. So the eggs definitely stretch it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true. They have a nice savory flavor too. So.
So yes, that's how I like my stuffing. But I do occasionally like to get a little fancy. And so sometimes adding sausage, I think that's a common.
That's a classic
addition. I don't like fruit of any kind in my stuffing. Again, I might have to rethink this at some point. I love bread pudding. Put the raisins in the bread pudding.
Just think of our stuffing as bread pudding and you'll be fine.
Uh-huh.
But no. But there are a few things I really like to add. So what I made for the show today, and I actually brought it here. So every once in a while, Erin, when you ask me a question, I have to wait a moment to answer it because I'm sneaking bites.
Yes.
What I brought is a modified store-bought stuffing, Pepperidge Farm this time, not stovetop, made into oyster stuffing in honor of New England, where I am now.
Oyster stuffing.
Yeah,
I've
you never
always
read
read about this, but always lived in the Midwest, and I'm like, it's just not, no.
Yeah.
But if I lived on the East Coast, absolutely, I'd be
Well, but even on the East
me.
Coast, I'm too cheap to get fresh oysters to put in my stuffing. So these are canned oysters, but they're awfully tasty. So, so what I did was I started with butter in the bottom of the pan, chopped onions that basically I almost let them caramelize because I don't like half-cooked onions. I don't like raw onions. I don't like half-cooked onions. Cook them all the way or leave them out.
Yeah.
But then I went out to my little container garden on the front porch and grabbed some fresh sage and some fresh thyme. Put that in, added some chicken broth and the liquid from my, not one, but 2 cans of oysters. Brought everything to, let's see, did I add anything else? I don't think so. Brought everything to a boil, stirred in my stuffing mix.
Yep.
And added my oysters, folded them in. And then I did, after it had set for a while, then I did move it to an oven dish and bake it for about another 20 minutes just to dry it out a little bit. Because when you start with your own broth, it sometimes can be a little soggy. And it's really good. There are a lot of, I use, as I mentioned, 2 cans. So there are almost as much oyster as bread in this, which Erin, I see you smiling. I know this is your jam.
Yeah.
Fancy.
But it's just tasty. It's not for everyone. If you don't like oysters, you wouldn't like this. Would it be better with fresh oysters? Yeah. Or frozen. Well, what wouldn't?
Yeah.
But it's good. And it was in and out. If I hadn't taken the extra step of baking it, I would have been done in 15 minutes. That, I think, is one of the great blessings of this dish. If you have the bread, the dried bread cubes ready to go, it can go together really fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, on Thanksgiving, you need at least a couple of dishes that go together really, really fast.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't do, a lot of recipes call for you to chop the oysters, but in every recipe I saw that said chop the oysters, someone in the comments had said, don't chop the oysters, put them in whole. So I did that. And I do like it better. I think.
I mean, I agree. You're going to be able to enjoy a bigger, delightful bite periodically as opposed to having it uniformly spread throughout. So I would go for the bigger chunks also.
Can I ask maybe a dumb question?
Yeah.
How big are oysters? I have no idea.
Let's see here.
Like, they're not that big, right?
Well, canned oysters, I think, especially tend to be.
They're about the size of like your half of your thumb.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
if
about what I was imagining.
Fresh ones, then they come in a variety of sizes.
Okay.
And I would be inclined to go with the smaller ones for this usage as well. So I think that also lends itself with the canned option.
But yeah, someday when I'm feeling really, really fancy, I will splurge and get fresh oysters and make oyster stuffing with them.
Yes.
But that was not today. But today is a pretty good day. Even so, I have most of a pan of oyster stuffing downstairs that I honestly don't know whether anyone else will eat. So I may end up living my dream of eating an entire pan by myself.
Yeah. You know what? If you have some leftovers, I sort of wonder if you could even shape them into almost like little crab cakes. But instead, sort of shape them into little patties and do a little pan fry.
Let's make the hot fat carbs even more hot and fat.
Exactly.
I love the way you think.
You can fry an egg and make a little breakfast sandwich thing going on there.
Yeah.
There's always ways to use more stuff in it. Make some pasta, mix it in.
Versatile to create, versatile to reuse. It's
just
wonderful
carbs.
food. Just carbs.
With stuff thrown in.
So that's my story. Take what the supermarket gives you. They had it on sale. Like this name brand stuff was 84 cents a box today.
Wow.
I can't beat that.
That's amazing.
Take what the store gives you, but then dress it up. Use your creativity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Add some other ingredients, some unexpected ingredients, and see how it turns out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I will also throw in that my mom specifically said Pepperidge Farm also. She said Pepperidge Farm herb stuffing. So
yeah,
we're a Pepperidge Farm family apparently.
I used the country style with the Pepperidge Farm. I did the 84 cents was the stovetop. I bought it so that I could prepare that for my children to eat tonight when Ken and I are eating the fancy stuffing.
I love it.
Yep.
That's amazing. Erin is currently scarfing down her stuffing.
I am.
It looks so good.
So, yeah, it is every bit as good as I expected it to be. Okay. So, I am offering in this episode a stuffing recipe that is essentially the combination of three variations found in The Joy of Cooking. Okay?
Okay.
It's basic bread stuffing. And then I'm like, oh, there's also a variation for bread stuffing with dried fruit and nuts. And there's a variation for bread stuffing with sausage and apple. And I say, why choose when you could do all? And that is,
I love it.
That's how I live my life, my friends.
Put it all in.
Option D, all of the above.
So, obviously, you could choose to leave out some of these items, but the cookbook that I have
is
huge. Intended. Yes, it is a massive cookbook, and you can tell that this is one of my premium recipes because it is one of the primary breaks in the cookbook.
Because there's more than one.
There's more than one. So the stuffing, if you just open it up where it wants to open, it opens to stuffing.
See, now I want to go dig out my mom's Joy of Cooking and see where it opens to. I feel like this is a really enlightening exercise.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So stuffing, like I said, I consolidated this recipe according to how I've made it now for about 20 years. Wow. And here is what I'm offering you. If you are looking for a stuffing recipe, you can always leave stuff out. That's the beauty of it. You could add something in. I mean, it's hard to imagine adding more to this, but you could do
not
it.
Put the kitchen sink in yet, so
no.
So
chocolate chips. Just kidding.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That coconut maybe.
Wow. Okay. So to make this stuffing, you start with a loaf of bread. I like to get just a good loaf of bread. I don't make my own bread, so that isn't something that I do. So I just get a good loaf. I like sesame semolina bread. So it's a tiny bit sourdough, but it's not a super sour sourdough. Whatever. That's what I do. So a pound of sliced bread, cut it into cubes, toast it in a 375-degree oven so that your cubes are browned. This is important because you don't want soggy stuffing. Toasting it allows you to add more butter and stock without ending up with a soggy stuffing. So don't skip the toasting step. If you choose to, then you're going to need to cut back on these other items or you're going to have a soggy mess.
Nobody cuts back on the butter.
I know, exactly.
Do whatever it takes.
So I like the addition of sausage or bacon to my stuffing. So in this case, I chose to use sausage. So it's a pound of bulk sausage. It could be Italian sausage, could be breakfast sausage, could be just garlic herb sausage. If you want something a little spicy, you could do that. Another option that I've done in the past that is also delicious is bacon lardons. where it's like thick cut bacon that then you cut into thickish pieces. So you end up with a good chewy, crunchless sort of bite of bacon. But that isn't what I did yesterday. Yesterday, I went the sausage route. Also delicious. So you brown your sausage or bacon in a large skillet. Once it is thoroughly browned, remove it to a very large bowl. You need a very large bowl for this, okay? Because eventually you're tossing everything, and bread is very fluffy. It's going to take up a lot of space, and there's a lot in this. So, large bowl. If you think your fat is especially tasty, you could keep it, but you might want to cut back. I know it's shocking to hear me say this, but you might choose then to cut back on the amount of butter that you use instead. If the fat is not especially amazing, then just strain off most of it. Don't worry trying to like dry out your pan with a paper towel. It's not worth it. So then you're going to add about 3 tablespoons of butter, 6 tablespoons total. You're going to use about half of your butter into that pan, and you want to saute onion and celery that are both chopped up. 2 cups of onion, 1 cup of celery. There is no point of being picky about this. It's essentially a medium to large onion chopped up. Maybe it's 2 medium onions. You don't have to be precise about this, people. It could be an extra large onion and just call it good. It's like scoop it up with your hands, and that's about a cup. And then you need 2 of those for the chopped onion. And then same for the celery, only it's 1 cup of celery.
I love celery and stuffing. I would have had it in mine today, except I forgot to buy it.
Yeah.
It was an oversight.
If you love celery, then go with equal parts onion and celery, or switch it and go with 2 cups celery and 1 cup onion.
Yeah,
if
I was
that's
thinking
flavor
that
you love,
too, because onion, for people who have weak digestions, onion can be a lot, but celery tends to be very gentle. So you could play with that ratio and reduce, so you have the onion flavor, but it's not going to be overpowering.
Yeah.
And then just add celery to get that crunch.
Exactly. And that is one of the things that I think celery adds in particular, is a nice little textural element. Yes. So I like to have a little bit of that crunch from the celery. So you saute all of that until it is nicely tender. Then you're going to add in some seasonings. Now, if you are someone like Rachel who grows some herbs, by all means, use fresh herbs. I do not have fresh herbs at this time of year. And so I did have a very robust basil plant this year, but that was the extent of my herbs this year. So 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/8 teaspoon of cloves. I didn't bother trying to measure that out. I just gave it a good sprinkle.
Yeah.
Cloves are powerful, so make sure it's just a sprinkle.
No more than 1/8 of a teaspoon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Little goes a long way on that one.
It does. So then stir that in thoroughly, and then move all of that into that bowl with the sausage. You're going to add the rest of your butter now to the pan. And now you're adding, the part that Rachel is less enthusiastic about, 2 medium to large apples that you've chopped up, okay? And you're going to then saute them in butter as well.
Oh, sauteed apples.
Yes.
Okay.
Not fresh.
Not fresh.
I've never had apples in stuffing.
It's
But
very
I feel like apples, they're like halfway to being potatoes. I feel like maybe I could tolerate apples, especially if they were sauteed in butter.
Yeah.
Because I love apples and red cabbage.
Well, there you go.
You should try it.
Maybe the apples will be the like gateway into fruity stuffing
There you go.
that
Maybe.
I've been needing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So in my opinion, choose a sweet tart variety. If it's just too sweet of an apple, then it's just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't provide, it needs to be able to stand up to the rest of the stuffing.
Yeah.
So I like a sweet tart variety for my apples. Small bite-sized pieces when you're cutting them up. I couldn't decide what description. I'm like, it's not really a dice. It's not a cube.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Chopped,
whatever. You want small bite-sized pieces. Okay. Once those are sautéed, add them to the bowl that you have going. Next, you're going to add, you're done sautéing at this point. So next you're going to add half a cup of parsley that you've minced up.
That's a lot of parsley.
It's a big dish. So you could do a quarter cup to a half, but there's a lot already.
But it's okay. Yeah. Parsley again is one of those mild herbs. It's not knock you over the head. It's not cloves.
Ugh. And again, I don't bother with, I call for a half a cup.
There's no stuffing police, guys.
Do like an eyeball. I just eyeball it. So I'm like,
stuffing is a very forgiving food.
Yes.
It is super forgiving. Okay. Now, also included in this, because it's everything as we've discussed, is a half a cup but I go with 3/4 cup because I love them. Pecans. Okay. Oh. Chopped pecans. Not walnuts like Sarah, but that's probably just because of the southern influence that my family experienced growing up. So our default nut is the pecan, not the walnut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah is from the more like the upper Midwest, not really the upper, I don't know what. She's from Michigan, and so walnuts.
Pecans don't grow as well in Michigan.
No, I did not grow up with pecans. I grew up with walnuts and cashews.
They're so mild and buttery.
Yes.
I can see how they would work very well in this recipe.
Ideally, you're going to toast them. Now, little side venture, set a timer so that you don't burn them in the oven, as I did yesterday, and they're just burned. And
oh no!
So set a timer. Start checking them at 5 minutes. And anyway, learn from my mistake. I've included that note in the recipe. I've included the note. Set a timer.
Your recipes are so helpful.
Like, oh, I have not learned from my mistake. She's like, one time I burned 3 batches of pecans in a row. So it happens. Oh, no. But anyway, set a timer.
Erin's recipes are the best, you guys. They're so informative. I still remember the one where halfway in it said, go for a walk.
Yes.
One of the instructions.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we have another small fork in the road. I like the fruit. So I also call for some dried fruit in this. 3/4 cup of dried fruit. Again, you could choose to leave it out. I feel that dried cherries are especially delicious if you mix them in. They just have a good tartness to them.
Yeah.
But you could easily leave this out, especially if you're like, well, we already have the apple. Maybe we don't need the dried fruit, or vice versa. But again, this is all, it's the stuffing with everything. So it's my preferred way. So that's what I'm giving to you. So you're going to toss all of this together. You want to toss it really well because you want the bread to have a chance to start soaking in all of this delicious buttery stuff that's floating around here. So give it a chance to start absorbing that. Toss it very thoroughly. Then you're going to drizzle over everything 1 cup of stock, okay? And toss it even more thoroughly. You don't want the cubes at the bottom to get soggy. You want the stock to be able to distribute throughout. If possible, let your stuffing rest before going in the oven. So if you're able to make this ahead, that'll give, again, the chance for the liquids to distribute themselves more evenly throughout the dish. So if possible, let it rest for an hour, or you could make it ahead and just refrigerate it for a few days before Thanksgiving. So make this at the beginning of the week when you're prepping things.
Yeah.
Before cooking, you should test a few of the cubes the bread cubes, to see if they need more stock. They should be chewy and delicious. At this point, you'll probably want to test a few more. And just to be really sure.
Test a lot of them.
You don't want them soggy and you don't want them tough. Okay.
Ah,
So
it's a fine line to walk.
It is. If you're soggy, you could try drying it out in the oven. You might need to cook it a little extra long if you've already gotten to the soggy point. But you shouldn't be soggy if you've used just a cup to start with, a cup of stock to start with. If it's tough, then add some more stock. However, you can also correct things with gravy. If it comes out of the oven at the end and it's like, oh, it got a little dried out in the oven, add some gravy when you
I would much rather have it dry than soggy.
Exactly. So soggy is an adjective that everyone wants to avoid with stuffing. Okay. So don't go too far with the stock. 1 cup will not be too far with what you've added in. It should be just fine, especially if you've toasted your bread cubes as you should be. It's going to be delicious before it's baked. And since you haven't used, everything is cooked. It's delicious. You could just sit there eating it, but it will be even more delicious once you have baked it.
Erin, did you just sit there eating it?
I do every time. I start out I'm like, Tessie, I'm like, oh, it's so good. I'm like, I should make sure like all the different items in there do play well together. So I'm like, let's try it with the bite of the apple and the sausage. Yep, still delicious. So
that's really funny.
It is very tasty even before it's baked, but it will be even better after.
That's my theory on how the Bosser family stuffing started.
Yeah.
Before it went in the oven.
And I can believe it. They're like, it's so good.
Never changed. Yeah. That's my theory.
That's very believable.
Because your recipe isn't really that far off from the base recipe from the Bosser family.
That's complicated. You can dress it up, but it's just...
you can.
There's no magic to it.
We just left out the baking part.
Just put all the stuff. So now you're going to bake it. You're going to put the stuffing into a buttered 9x13 casserole dish. Cover it up with foil so that it doesn't dry out too much. Bake it for about 25 minutes and then uncover it and let it get nice and sort of crispy on top. If you are concerned that you started out a bit soggy to begin with, then just don't cover it and just bake it, and it'll steam out some of that excess. So you're going to bake it uncovered for 15 minutes until it is brown and crisp and just glorious, and it will be the best stuffing. I don't know. It is. It's so delicious.
It smells amazing. And it looks just like the fanciest.
Yeah.
Okay. You've inspired me.
So
I may have to try your recipe.
You maybe you don't have to add everything. You could, but you can
I'll leave out the dried fruit. You're quite right.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
Those buttery sauteed apples, that might be a good add for me.
Yeah. Maybe, and you don't even have to add a lot of them. And if they're in decent sized chunks, if it turns out a regret, you just work around them.
Eat around them. It's all good.
So I don't think you'll regret it, though. It is, but again, stuffing, very forgiving. Any of these ingredients that you're like, not super keen on it, drop them out. Anything you like extra, add some more in. It's fine. It's super forgiving and very delicious.
Okay, this is totally impromptu, but I think we need to play a game.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone gets to name, so you have a minute to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets to name 2 things you could add to a stuffing and 1 thing you absolutely should never, ever, ever add to a stuffing. I mentioned chocolate chips earlier, and that created a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
And so that just inspired me
Okay.
to challenge you to this. So take a moment to think about 2 things you might add to a stuffing and 1 thing you never, ever, ever.
Okay.
And now I'm going to just completely blank on my own game.
Oh, I think I have ideas.
Okay, I got 1. No, I don't like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I've got at least 2.
This is like 2 truths and a lie, but stuffing edition.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. Okay, so instead of 2 truths and a lie, it's 2 good ideas and 1 terrible idea for putting in your stuffing.
I love it. All right, I got mine.
Okay.
Quinoa.
That was actually one of mine, so now I'm glad I have backup.
And carrots.
Oh, yep.
For some crunch.
Okay.
And never ever banana.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll go with, now I'm not saying I would add these to the already existing stuffing with everything.
No.
It would need to be more of a trade out or a different variation. But things that I think would still be pretty tasty would be some mushrooms.
Ooh.
That was another one of mine. Shoot.
Okay.
Hang on, I can do this.
They would probably need to be roasted or sautéed or something is what I would do before I put them in there. And then also I would play around with, instead of the fruits that I have chosen, I might consider whole cranberries, like fresh cranberries that would then bake in the oven, and you would get that tart bursty item. So I would consider that as well. And then an item that I would never put in stuffing. I'll go with tater tots. Yeah. That's it's its own thing. You shouldn't put tater tots in stuffing.
That would be weird.
Now I'm beginning to wonder. This tater tot casserole is delicious.
That is a thing.
It is. It's its own thing.
But I trust you, Erin. You have such good instincts that if you say tater tots don't go in stuffing, I'm going to resist the temptation to try it.
Yeah.
Tater tot stuffing? Tater tots instead of breadcrumbs?
Yeah.
I feel like it's because
alternate universe kind of stuff.
Stuffing is not
universe.
thin enough. Tater tots, if they're mixed in throughout, then you're going to have a lot that don't get that brown crunchiness.
That'd be weird.
No one likes a soggy tot.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's
you could
almost
top,
worse.
I guess you could top a stuffing.
That's
but anyway, then it's a casserole. Then it's tater tot casserole. So no, tater tots.
Nope.
Okay. My two things I would add. One, and this would not be in the same batch. One, giblets.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of giblet gravy. Absolutely. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking of it, one thing we've sometimes done with the giblet gravy, aside from adding hard-boiled eggs, is also buying some separate chicken livers to add extra liver to the gravy. Yeah. Because there's just one turkey liver does not go very far.
No. And the liver is the best.
Giblets and or chicken livers, I think, would be a fun add to stuffing. And Parmesan cheese.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be good.
That savory taste. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing I would not ever add is pickles. Pickles of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That flavor would not go.
So... yeah, maybe we should play this online too. I feel like this is a fun game.
Oh, I'll put it as an Instagram question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
I was going to mention kale too, because I found
that would be good.
Kale stuffing recipes too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a stronger parsley.
Once you get started thinking of stuffing add-ins, it's really hard to stop.
Right.
Like I was thinking, well, I mean, we put onions in stuffing, but why not French fried onion?
Yeah,
that would be tasty.
If you are looking for a gluten-free option, it's not going to be a bread, but it will give some of the very similar flavors. I'd probably switch it up a little bit, but rice makes a good stuffing as well. And so again, it's the carb base that then you add a lot of your flavors. And in fact, mushrooms would go really well with a rice-based stuffing.
Yes, they
or
would.
wild rice.
Yeah.
So either of those would be, I think you could find some really good options if you're looking for that sort of basically your carb side for Thanksgiving. That's gluten-free. A rice or a wild rice stuffing would be a very tasty option to consider.
I just found a quinoa stuffing.
Yeah, your quinoa stuffing you mentioned.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one thing I did want to, again, throw out there as an idea, I'm going to pass along. So my family that gets together for Thanksgiving, there's usually between probably 20 and 35 of us. It's a big group. There's a lot of food and one oven. And so through the years, I've taken on the timeline of trying to hit when we're going to serve our food with the food hot. And so when people arrive with their food, It's usually already cooked, but it still needs to be, heated through, toasted, things along those lines. What we have done is in a bedroom, ideally the closest bedroom to the kitchen, we set up on the bed a bunch of throws, because every woman who is in a house, there's going to be some throws, right? My mom has a giant collection of throws. So you lay all of these out, Afghans, quilts, whatever, it could work, but throws. Put those all on the bed, line them up. Then you lay out how your oven is going to be occupied, fully occupied up into the time it needs to be served. Rolls go in the very last because you can't really keep rolls hot. So they have to just go directly from the oven to the table.
Yep.
But everything else then, once it comes out of the oven, it goes directly into the bedroom, onto the bed with a piece of foil covering it. And then it is wrapped up in a throw. So it becomes an insulated little oven warmer right there on the bed.
Yep.
Whoever gets the bed that night, it's already nice and toasty for them. But anyway, as things come out of the oven, they go piping hot onto the bed, onto one of those throws, which then gets folded up over it, keeping it all hot so that once it is time then for actual Thanksgiving, you then relocate all of that to your serving area. And honestly, it's not piping hot, but that's impossible to accomplish with a single oven, to have everything piping hot.
Well, and you don't want it piping hot. You're going to burn your tongue.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So this is our solution to keeping things warm with lots of different side dishes. Use the oven and the throws. It's like a little insulated blanket for it to rest while you keep cooking.
I love that. It reminds me of a now obsolete technology that was used quite a bit, I think, during World War II and beforehand, called a hay box.
Oh.
This was a way to make cooking oil or stove oil, stove fuel go further, so that you would have a box that was lined with hay, and you would get your food, like say you're cooking a stew, get it to a good hot simmer on the stove, put the lid on, put it in the hay box, cover it up, and it would finish cooking over a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a very similar concept. This
absolutely.
Just using insulation to keep things hot. And I'm sure they do continue to cook for a little while in your improvised hay box there.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. Very low tech, but it works.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. You do need to make sure everyone knows to stay out of that bedroom.
Yeah,
but it's a good solution, and so I offer that up also as a handy tip if you're trying to figure out how to keep things warm while you are bringing everything to the completed state and ready to eat.
And I'll throw out a slightly smaller version of that too. If you have insulated food bags, like for shopping, and you don't have a ton, if you don't have a ton of dishes or they're smaller, you can wrap them in towels and put them in your insulated food bags, and that would do a similar thing too. So if you don't happen to have an extra bedroom or whatever, there are options. That's brilliant.
Love it. Well, have we talked stuffing to death?
We have talked stuffing to death. It's time to go eat it, guys.
I know.
Death by hot fat carbs. What a way to go.
Just ready to go for your stuffing for Thanksgiving. Maybe you try something new this year, which would be super fun. We also would like to know what your family stuffing recipes are. If you just do the stuffing out of the box, which is totally acceptable, or if you do something wild and crazy or something from scratch. We want to know. In the Lutheran Ladies Lounge, join us in our Facebook group. Share your stories, share your pictures of your stuffing there. You can also follow us and tag us on Instagram if you have stuffing pictures you want to share with us there. And we'll have some follow-up fun questions and quizzes and things the week after this podcast drops too on our Instagram. So follow us there at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. You can find all of our podcast episodes at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on your favorite podcasting app, or on the KFUO radio app. You can also send us an email if you want to talk to us, share your ideas, share your stuffing stuff.
Stuffing stuff.
And pictures that way. You can send us an email, lutheranladies@kfuo.org, and we'll find your message there. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm very full of stuffing.
Yes.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a review for us too. If you love the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast, consider financially supporting our producer, KFUO Radio, so we can keep doing what we do. Find out how at kfuo.org/give.